Season is upon us, and if you receive the news that a lot of folks hate to hear, that you owe money, you owe the IRS some money, what should you do? Great question here. CPA Kimberly Washington joins us live in studio with a few tips to help us on out. And Kim, what's the first step for people who are in that position where they owe money but maybe don't have the extra money on hand?
Right. First, get an understanding. Get an understanding why do you owe. You can do that two different ways. Pick up the phone, of course, contact the IRS. That could be a little bit challenging at this time. Or you can actually look at a letter that they sent you to get an idea. But here's the thing. If you owe as it relates to a past tax return, look at that tax return, determine whether or not you qualify for any deductions or any tax credits. And that way you can reduce the tax liability if you're able to amend it at this time. But you want to take those steps before making, of course, a payment to the IRS. Get an understanding first.
And of course, those payments may increase when it comes to penalties and some of those fees. We know it can up the amount owed.
Right.
What can a taxpayer do to try to reduce this amount?
Right. So after you get an understanding, of course, you definitely want to pay and you want to reduce your penalties. And the way that you can do that is understand two different ways how your penalties came about. One thing that you can request is called a penalty abatement. You can actually request from the IRS, hey, I have these penalties. Can you please remove these penalties from my account? And they'll do so if you qualify. The first way is called a first-time penalty abatement. So if you haven't had penalties in the last 3 years, you may qualify. Another way, and of course that's automatically, and another way where you have to do just a little bit more legwork, you can ask for a reasonable cause penalty. And that way, in case of a disaster, maybe an illness, you can request for those penalties to be removed. But you definitely want to ask that question concerning your penalties.
Yeah, I would think down here, Hurricane Ida would be a good example from last year, and so many people impacted by that natural disaster. What about the idea of a payment plan, payment arrangements? What options can people take?
Right. So you might be saying, okay, well, I don't have the money, but I do want to pay. What can I do? Contact the IRS. Again, you can actually do this online. You can request for a payment arrangement. This way you're paying a couple of dollars each month until you pay that balance out. You can also contact them and say, hey, I don't have the money now, but I expect to have it in the next 3 months. They'll put your account on hold, and then that way you can pay it at that time. But you do have options, but you do want to make sure you're in contact with them and let them know what options you have available at this time.
And what about the idea of these advertisements you see paying pennies on the dollar and fractions of the payment? Is that really an option?
Yeah, it's an option, but you have to be careful about that. You have to qualify. And the way that you qualify, of course, is called an offer in compromise. This is where you say, hey, IRS, maybe I owe $10,000, but I only could afford to give you $3,000. And here's the thing. You'll complete a form, but it's based off of your income and also your financial assets. If you don't have a lot of financial assets or maybe not enough income, you may qualify, but if you do, the IRS may reject your offer, so you have to keep that in mind concerning offer in compromise.
Some great info as always. CPA Kimberly Washington. Kim, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.